February 15th, 1972. New orders. Survivor assistance officer. Escorting the body of a lieutenant back to his hometown. It's a tough duty, but at least it's brief. I'm not sure I'm very good at this.
Right, Phil?
Especially in this case, I never even knew the man.
Yes, ma'am.
What can I say to his family? What can I do that'll make any difference?
Step. All aboard!
Mr. and Mrs. Johnson?
Yes.
I'm Major Laird, the escort and survivor assistance officer. I've brought your son home. The Army extends its deepest sympathy for the loss of your son. His country will be eternally grateful for his sacrifice. I'm here to do whatever I can to help you. If you want a military burial with full honors...
Thank you, Major. We want to keep it simple.
When do you plan to have the funeral?
Today,
Today?
at noon.
Praise be to God for the power of music. To be able to lift our voices above the sorrow of this moment. We've said a lot about Dwight Johnson here this morning, but we all know that it is deeds more than words that make the difference in this world. You know where the funeral is. You know that you're all invited. I hope to see you there. Dwight was killed in war. Let us go out of here in the spirit of love and peace. Amen. Pallbearers. All rise, please. Proceed out.
You must be the officer Ada told me was coming.
Yes, ma'am, I'm Major Laird.
Eudora McAllister, friend of the family. I'm driving the Johnsons to the cemetery. Would you care to ride out with us?
Thank you, I will.
My car's out in front.
Mrs. McAllister, what is going on here?
A funeral, just as I told you.
You told me it was a friend of the family.
Dwight Johnson is a friend.
Dwight Johnson. That boy can't be buried here.
It's their plot, Oster.
We on it legal.
Mrs. McAllister, I've been getting calls from all over town. Did you really give a grave site to these folks?
No.
We bought it. Fair and square.
How much did you pay for it, huh?
That is what is private about private property, Mr. Oster.
Our son died for his country, and he has a right to be buried in any part of it.
Well, that's any part but right here.
Luther, Ada, you've got a nice-looking casket there. Why don't you bury Dwight out where your folks are buried? That's where he belongs.
People belong where they want to be, not where they're told to be. Now, Dwight loved this place, and he loved this town in spite of everything. And he deserves to be buried right here.
Look, I'm sure we can work all this out. I'd like to call my commanding officer.
We don't need any federal intervention here, Major. This is strictly a local affair. Let me read you something. Within the city limits of Rockville, Georgia, burial shall be limited to members of the Caucasian race or their ashes thereof. Now, folks, that's the law. I'm sorry, and I'm here to enforce it. So let's take that casket and put it back on the hearse.
How can you do that to these people? They are as much a part of Rockville as anybody.
You're a good one to talk about Rockville. You're gonna ruin this town.
I think this has gone far enough. Why don't you move on out before this turns into something ugly?
Something ugly? What would you call this? I'm sorry if this turn of events took you by surprise, Major. We just had to try it directly without telling any more people than necessary.
Doesn't seem like a problem that's going to be solved overnight.
How long are you going to be here?
Normally it takes about 3 or 4 days, but my orders are to stay as long as necessary.
What do you want me to do now, Ada?
Well, could we keep him at the church for a spell?
Surely. We will take care of it.
Really enjoyed that, and I want to catch you for lunch someday on the road, okay? Enjoyed talking with you.
Excuse me, Chief. I'd like to talk to you about what happened today.
Afraid there's not too much to say, Major.
Oh, it seems to me there is.
What do you want, Major?
Well, for starters, I'd like your help in getting Lieutenant Johnson buried in that cemetery.
Can't do that.
What then? His body is just supposed to hang in limbo?
There's a place for Dwight. You go straight out here, about 5 miles out of town. That's
Right.
where Dwight's people are buried.
Out of town.
Don't look at me that way, Major. It started long before my time. I just keep the peace here. Take a look around you, Major. This is a good town with good people. I watched Dwight grow up here. I know what you're thinking, and you're probably right. This isn't the best end for him, but unfortunately, he died before this town was ready for this. Maybe if he'd lived a little longer.
A little longer? This is the 1970s.
Our schools are integrated, and our people get along. They might not get along as well as you like, but they get along okay. Now, Major, I got things I gotta take care of.
I did call my commanding officer, by the way. You should know the Army's not going to rest until Lieutenant Johnson has gotten his due.
The Army might best be served by turning its attention to putting that boy in a veteran cemetery.
This was his home. His parents want him here.
I'm sorry.
You could go to court over this, you know that.
And that could take years. Do you want to make Luther and Ada wait that long before they can lay that boy to rest?
Do you?
I can't help you, sir. Now, you tried. You did your duty. Why don't you let it drop?
And that's the limit to what the Army can do? After that, it goes to the U.S. Attorney then, right?
Okay. Thank you for the information. Yeah.
You want milk or sugar, Major Lew?
No, just a little milk, please.
I had that book out earlier. That boy left us a lot of memories.
Must have been very proud of him. Mrs. Johnson, when I first realized what you and your husband were trying to do, I must admit I was a little surprised. But I went along, those are my orders, to render all reasonable assistance. I'm still here to do that, even though it's taking a little longer than normally. But, well, I've come to see what you're up against here. On top of all your grief, are you sure you want to take this on?
All my grief? I don't know yet how much grief's in me. How many tears. I thought I used them all up on that first night, but I didn't. For the rest of my life, I may not reach the bottom of that river. But my grief, my husband's, is no excuse not to do the right thing. You said you had no children?
No, ma'am. Not yet.
I hope you do. They're a blessing. They're such a blessing. Some folks, they're ready for that kind of thing, but I wasn't. Everything Dwight did was such a surprise. Walking early, talking a blue street, playing ball like that. And bringing home those grade cards. Mr. Johnson and I, we went to school, but we ain't never brought home no grades like that. He was a wonderment. You know, sometimes, we'd sit and try to figure out where he got it all from. What great-grandma or grandpa had that kind of a mind. And when you got a child like that, sometimes you don't even feel like you're the mother or father. You feel like you brought a gift to the world, a message. Even you yourself don't understand it, not all of it. And now he's dead. No, I can say that now. But he's not gone. Not unless they take him out of this town. A town he brought honor to. It would be like turning time around and saying he was never here at all. And we can't do that, Major Laird. So, no matter what the grief or how much trouble, we just can't do that.
You read this editorial, Joe?
Nipper, you know I don't get to the paper until I get you clowns out of here.
It's about that trouble down at the cemetery. Listen to this. A white woman owning a plot in the town cemetery evidently donated it to the Johnson family. Now, who do you suppose that is?
Never guess in a million years.
Leading them to the false expectation of burying their son there.
False is right. Do you want anything else?
No, thanks. You know where I can get a paper, though?
Great. People who start things like this deserve what comes to them.
And what is that?
What?
What's coming to him?
You defending this nonsense, Henry?
No. No, but I'm not going to attack it either. The way I see it, the only way to get what you want is to go for it.
The only way they get those ideas in their heads is from outsiders.
Everything all right?
Just fine, thanks.
But how could you say that I used his casket as a political football?
I call them the way I see them. I have to.
Sam Jennings, we've known each other for 50 years. You know I'm not a political person. I don't belong to any of those groups. I'm not a joiner.
Well, that's for sure. The only organization you belong to is the oddballs of the world. You may even be vice president.
What is so odd about helping your friends?
Helping your friends? Or are you using them to make a point?
Listen, I thought long and hard before getting them that extra plot because I knew how people like you would interpret it.
I have to interpret it. It's my job to try to give the people of this town some perspective. Do you remember what it was like in the South in the 60s? Have you forgotten those mobs, the violence, the police dogs, those little girls blown up in a church house? Well, it didn't happen here. This town got through it all right.
Got through it? We didn't get through anything if someone like Dwight Johnson can't even be buried here.
You measure the world from perfection downward. Well, I don't. I measure it from chaos upward. That's the difference. Anyway, if you don't like the way I run this paper, why don't you start one of your own?
I don't want to start a newspaper. I don't even want to read one for a while. Especially yours. You can cancel my subscription.
Again?
What's wrong? What happened to you? I remember young Sam Jennings, the idealist.
Yeah, I remember that. That was a long time ago, you know.
Mrs. McAllister.
Major Ladd, are you going in to see the editor, too?
Yes, ma'am.
I wish I could believe it would do some good.
I'm Sam Jennings.
I'm Major Kendall Laird. I'm the Army's Survivor Assistance Officer here to help the Johnsons with the burial of their son.
My Johnsons. I suppose you're here to give me a piece of your mind, too. Sit down, Major, and go ahead. It's that kind of morning for me.
I just saw Mrs. McAllister leave here looking mad as a cat. My guess is that she's pretty upset about this editorial of yours.
She had no reason to be. I didn't mention her by name.
Well, you don't have to in a town this size.
Theodore and I go back a long time, Major. And over those years, we've had lots of differences, some public, some private. But I have to say that she's survived them pretty well.
I'm not worried about her, but what about the Johnsons? Is this fair to them?
It's not a question of fairness. It's a question of timing, the speed.
Mr. Jennings, this is 1972. Integration has been the law of the land for 15 years now.
It may be the law of the schools or the drinking fountains, but we're talking about cemeteries here, where we bury our families. And that is a very personal thing around here.
And the Johnsons? Don't you think it's a personal thing to them? They deserve better than this.
Yes, maybe they do. But I hope you won't let this incident give you the wrong idea about our town.
Look, Mr. Jennings, I can see that you care a lot about this town. Let me ask you a question. What picture flashes into your mind when I mention the name of another town? Little Rock, Arkansas. You saw it, didn't you? The photo of the little black girl clutching her school books out of fear, having to be escorted into her first day of school surrounded by armed soldiers. You want the town of Rockville to be remembered by an image like that?
No, of course I don't. But...
Well, if you don't want a demonstration here, or maybe even a Supreme Court case, you should give some equal space in your paper for Dwight Johnson. His men have put him up for a Silver Star for saving their lives.
Are those white boys?
Most of them, as a matter of fact. There's a hook for your story right there, isn't it?
If it's a story, yes. If it's a sermon, no. Can you get to those men?
Me? You're the journalist, Mr. Jennings, not me.
Now, don't worry about that, Major. You bring me some information, hard information, and I'll write the story.
You mean that?
Damn right. And I'll print it, fair and square.
It's a deal. I don't know, Colonel Holmby. Your original assignment was a pretty routine matter, but it's turned into well, a very uncertain situation. I want to help the family, but I'm not sure I know what to do. There just don't seem to be any guidelines.
What are the feelings in the town?
I don't know exactly, sir. There seem to be people on both sides. The editor of the town paper says he's willing to back up my idea of interviewing the men who put him up for the medal.
Just so your activity doesn't stir up more controversy.
No, sir.
The Army's going to do the right thing. But we've got to be concerned about community relations. I mean, Rockville's just 60 miles down the road.
I'm very conscious of that, sir, but the Johnsons are a very determined people.
But I want you to proceed with caution.
Yes, sir.
Keep in touch.
Thank you, sir.
Range clear on the left. Range clear on the right. The range is now clear.
Sergeant Erskine? At ease, Sergeant. Can you give me a minute?
Yes, sir. Sergeant Bradford, would you take over?
Okay, you people, take 5.
I've come to talk to you about Lieutenant Johnson.
Lieutenant Johnson, what do you want to know?
I'm trying to help him out.
All due respect, Major, Lieutenant Johnson's dead. Ain't nothing anyone can do for him now.
Well, actually, there is. Got a problem down in his hometown. They don't want to bury him in the cemetery there because it's all white. I figure if anybody can help out his family, you guys can. You put him up for a Silver Star, right?
Sir, is this some kind of official investigation?
Well, no. I understood that Colonel Holmby was going to brief you guys on this.
Yes, sir. I just want to be sure what's going on. What do you need to know?
Well, the man died with honors. I'd like to know a little bit more about that.
Sure.
Well, he must have been a good officer, right?
He wasn't afraid of nothing, I'll give him that. He didn't go looking for combat, but when we found ourselves in the middle of it, he sure had a tendency to charge on in.
Sounds like you have a little problem with that.
Major, do you like getting shot at?
No.
Me neither.
But you like him?
Yeah.
Did you have any particular feelings about serving under a black officer?
Not especially. All officers look alike to me. He's a good joke.
The day he saved your lives, what can you tell me about that?
Mainly, I remember the rain, monsoons. We got pinned down in a crossfire next to the river. We called for air, but we couldn't get any. And then all of a sudden, all breaks loose. They'd started in with the mortars. It happened so fast, before we knew it, Lieutenant was dead. Impact just pushed him headfirst into the river. He got a grenade off before he died, and then all of a sudden it was quiet.
Quiet?
Yeah. You know, Major Nam was funny that way.
What about the man? What was he like?
I can't say I ever got to know him too well, sir. You know how officers keep their distance.
Yeah, but there must have been something that...
That's all that comes to mind, unless, I mean, you can think of any particular questions. Will that be it, Major?
Yeah, that's all, Sergeant.
Yes, sir.
Sergeant Booker T. Douglas?
Yes, sir.
Sergeant, come on down here, will you, please? I'm looking for information about Lieutenant Dwight Johnson.
Could you be more specific, sir?
You don't mind if I record this, do you?
If you want.
I'm talking to everyone in the unit. This is Booker T. Douglas. I understand you men put him up for a medal, is that right?
That's right.
I was wondering, did you and he have any kind of a special relationship?
How do you mean, sir?
Most of the unit was white.
No, sir. He treated me just like the others.
How's that?
Good. He wasn't one to get very chummy with the men, sir.
Yeah, but they all respected him, right?
Yes, sir.
Can you tell me something about him personally? I'm trying to get a hold of the personal side.
Can't help you there, sir.
Why not?
Can't say I ever got to know him. He was a brother, but he was an officer. No fraternization. You dig what I'm saying, sir? He was a good Joe.
Yeah, that's what they tell me. What do you remember about the day he was killed?
It was raining. Been raining for days. My feet were rotting in my boots. We got caught in the crossfire with Charlie. Couldn't get no air support. Well, then all broke loose. And when it was over, the lieutenant was dead. He fell in the river. Would that be all, sir?
Yeah, that's all. Thank you, Sergeant. Specialist Porter?
Yeah?
I'm looking for Kevin Porter, who served under Lieutenant Dwight Johnson.
Just a second. Let me secure these weapons. Sir.
Could I speak to you for a moment in the office, Specialist?
Yes, sir. I heard someone was asking about the lieutenant.
Oh, yeah?
Grapevine. We get 3 phones. We only need 1 to keep in contact with the Army and the other 2 to keep us sane.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
So, how can I help?
Well,
sir,
it's about the lieutenant.
Yes, the lieutenant.
His family has been having some trouble with a few people in his hometown.
I see.
And I thought maybe your feelings about the lieutenant would help them change a few minds back there. You don't mind if I record this, do you?
No, go right ahead, sir.
This is Porter. So, what do you remember most about the lieutenant?
Well, he tried to maintain a little more discipline out in the fields than most officers. Guess that was West Point talking.
How did you feel about that?
Oh, it's for our own good. He was great. A real good Joe.
What'd you say?
A real good Joe.
How did you feel when he was killed?
There wasn't anybody that died that I didn't feel for. And that goes for the lieutenant.
That last day, tell me about what he did to save the unit.
Well, we were trapped in a crossfire. And nobody knew how to get out. It was wet. It had been raining for 15 days. We radioed for air support, but there wasn't any. And from out of nowhere, it happened.
What happened?
All broke loose.
Started in with the mortars. Like to me. He's a good joke.
Dig what I'm saying, sir. He was a good Joe.
this a McAllister residence?
Yes, come in.
Thank you.
Mrs. M went down to the kitchen. I'm Eleanor Clark.
I'm Kendall Laird. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you. This way, please.
Thank you.
Major Laird, are you always punctual to the very minute?
Yes, ma'am. I'm well trained by the U.S. Army.
Please sit down.
Thank you.
You met Eleanor.
Yes, I did.
Eleanor goes to the university in Atlanta, but when she's home, she gives me a hand in this big old house. We were just having a break. Would you like some tea?
Yes, please.
You sure you wouldn't like to stay for another cup?
No, thank you. I have to go in a minute.
Eleanor, this is the officer I was telling you about. His assignment is to help the Johnsons bury their son in whatever way they choose. Right, Major?
I think you know my orders better than I do.
Oh, I doubt that. You seem to be a conscientious person. Help yourself to cream and sugar.
Thank you.
Would the Army be willing to take this thing to court?
Eleanor is a law student.
Well, I'm hoping it's not going to come to that.
I just hope it doesn't drag on. I worry for the Johnsons. And for you, Mrs. M. There are all kinds of people in this town. Even some of my relatives don't like what Dwight's parents are doing. But then none of them ever met Dwight. We went to school together. In fact, he's part of the reason I went to law school. He never allowed himself much time to socialize.
I know Ada was worried about him in that way. That he was always pushing himself, even when he was very young.
Well, I better run that errand. You sure you don't mind me using your car?
Heavens, no. But check the oil level. She's consuming great quantities again.
One of these days, I'm gonna get in there and find the trouble. Nice to meet you, Major.
Same to you, Eleanor. So you've known the Johnsons for a long time?
Oh, yes, a very long time. Ada's mother was a midwife. She delivered my only child. So our families are connected in life and death. My son, Auburn, died in the early days in Vietnam. And Ada was a real comfort to me then.
That must have been very difficult for you.
A great preacher once said, "Be kind. Nearly everyone is fighting a hard battle. And not just on the battlefield." So, why did you want to meet with me, Major Laird?
I'm concerned about the Johnsons. When you gave them that plot, you must have realized that it was going to create a schism in the town.
I did it to heal a schism. But this goes beyond principle. This is a personal thing. If you had known Dwight, you would know what I mean. He was something special.
I keep hearing that kind of thing. Didn't he have any faults at all?
Oh, yes, he could be difficult and demanding, mostly of himself. But he shone. Everybody could see it. You see, nothing was impossible to Dwight. Everything was a possibility. When he was 8, he went to the library to borrow a book, but the librarian wouldn't let him have it because of his race. So he said he would wait until she changed her mind. And he did. He waited. All day long, he stood at that desk waiting. That poor woman, she was so unnerved by the end of the day. I think if she hadn't been so decrepit, she might have tossed him out. But closing time came, and there he was. And I think when 5 o'clock rolled around, she was so worn down, she just gave him the book. So if it had been anyone but Dwight, I probably wouldn't have given up that plot. But my goodness, if he can't turn tradition around, we may have to wait another 30 years. And of course, Ada and Luther aren't going to budge. Sometimes it takes one person making one move to open people's eyes. It's hard to be that one person. But when the time comes, and you know it, you just say, I guess this is it. It's me that has to do this.
What?
I just remember that time he climbed up into the church belfry and got stuck. You remember that? Mm-hmm. Climbed up there, couldn't get down, scared to holler because he know didn't have no business up there. Then he come and rang the bell for church vespers. Lord. Yeah, such a headache. Every time I started bawling him out about it, I just cracked up. Lord, that boy. That boy.
Specialist Oliver?
Yes, sir.
That's a pretty good shot. You do that every time? How do you, Specialist? You expected me, didn't you?
Sir, I know under the UCMJ I don't have the exact same rights as a civilian, but before we begin, I would like to know what my rights are.
What makes you think you need to know your rights?
Sir, with all due respect, unless you inform me of my rights, I refuse to say another word.
Look, this isn't an investigation. I just wanted to talk to you informally about Lieutenant Johnson.
Do I understand that, sir? I don't have to answer your questions?
Yeah, that's right.
If that's the case, sir, then may I be dismissed?
So you won't discuss Lieutenant Johnson with me?
That's correct, sir.
May I ask you why not?
Sir, with all due respect, I'd like to have a lawyer present before I say another word.
Why don't you go back to your game, Oliver?
How many pins did you slaughter?
Oh, come on, Kenny. I know you didn't come down here just to drown worms.
Do you know of any verified cases of fragging?
I heard men in bars bragging they did it. The only thing I believed was that they were lying. I've seen other men get drunk and stay awful silent when the subject comes up. Hard to know what that silence means. My guess is they did something too bad to talk about.
If there had been a conspiracy by a group of men to kill their officer in combat, and I could get one of them to crack, do you think I should bring them to justice, even if I knew it would destroy the dead man's family?
What you're describing doesn't sound like justice.
No, letting them get away with it doesn't sound like justice either.
Well, justice is an idea. It's not real. Family, that's real.
But what's real is it's you or me or somebody else who's getting shot at while we're out there. I mean, if ideas don't mean anything, why should I be willing to lose my life over them?
I'm not a philosopher. I don't think about it like you do. I don't think about it at all.
And what we saw in Nam, you never think about that?
I don't think about things. It's not my way. Now, you want to ask me about Vietnam? I didn't like it over there. I didn't have to think about it not to like it. It just came natural.
Yeah, but you followed orders.
Yes, I followed orders.
Well, you must have believed in something.
I believed in following orders.
Oh, come on, Sarge. I know you better than that. It must have meant more to you than that.
Well, I suppose. When you find out about it, why don't you tell me? Come on, Kano. Now, what is it that lets this thing get so far under your skin?
Well, I've gotten to know the family, and I would hate to hurt them. And I've also met the men in the unit. I know that they're covering something up. I just can't think what else it could be. I don't know. Maybe the best thing to do would be just to drop it. It would certainly be the easiest thing to do.
So?
So?
You're gonna do the hard thing, right?
Morning, sir.
Sir, Major Laird.
Major, have a seat.
Thank you, sir.
1 in 10 minutes.
Yes, sir. I'm on a special assignment as an SAO helping the family of Lieutenant Dwight Johnson. I've run into something unexpected.
Go on.
Well, sir, I've been interviewing some of his men who are stationed here now, and I think I may have stumbled onto some kind of a conspiracy.
What kind of conspiracy, Major?
When I asked some of his men who served under him to describe the battle where he died, they kept repeating the same key expressions, as if they'd rehearsed them or something. They seemed nervous that I was recording the interviews. One of them even refused to talk to me without a lawyer present.
Major, are you suggesting Lieutenant Johnson was killed by his own men?
These men put him up for a medal, sir. Something just doesn't make sense.
It's the sort of thing that's almost impossible to prove. You realize that?
Yes, sir, I do.
And have you thought of the effect it would have on his family to even raise this issue?
Yes, sir, I've thought a lot about that. I can't imagine anything worse. Lieutenant Johnson was a black officer commanding a largely white unit.
Race isn't supposed to be an issue in the Army, Major.
Theoretically.
All right, let's keep this informal for now. If you find anything substantial, I'll turn it over for criminal investigation.
Yes, sir, I realize how sensitive.
We both do, Major. We both do. I want to report on this in 3 days.
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir.
Major Laird, someone just called. Here's your message, sir.
Thank you.
Yeah, Sam Jennings, please. Hi, Sam. Yeah, what's up? Overnight they did that?
So they bought the cemetery from the town council to make it private property. That way it wouldn't have to be desegregated. It was Oster. Got a couple of his cronies together, and they slipped it through before most of the town knew what was happening. Well, these slimy deals, and I don't like the smell of them.
Well, they're just trying to hang on to the status quo. I thought that's what that editorial of yours was trying to defend.
No, I was not trying to defend the way things were here. I was just saying that I thought Rockville was not ready for change of this type at this time. But I don't know. Lately, I've been hearing things said around here that I thought I would never hear in all my lifetime. I've even heard some people say they think Dwight Johnson should be buried in Rockville Cemetery. What I'm telling you is that the town has changed. Maybe just an inch. But it has changed.
What does that mean for the Johnsons?
That depends a lot on you. What have you got on that story for me?
Well, unfortunately, there's been a complication on the military side.
Now, what does that mean?
Look, I'm under a lot of pressure all of a sudden to get something else done in the next few days.
So you're just going to wait?
This isn't as easy as we thought it was going to be.
Oh?
I am working on it, Sam. I'll be in touch, okay?
Okay.
Mr. Johnson?
Major?
How are you today?
Oh, tolerable, I guess.
Back to work, huh?
Not exactly.
Why not?
Oh, you know. Fella called me up last week about wiring up his garage. I go over there this morning to measure out the job. He says forget about it.
And that's related to the problem with the cemetery, right?
I don't know. Lives about a block away from it.
You think you're going to lose any more jobs? If Dwight was buried outside of town, do you think the jobs would reappear? Mr. Johnson, I really do admire what you're trying to do here. But before I can proceed with the Army side of this, I have to ask you whether a military burial in a federal cemetery is an alternative that you're considering in any way.
You want it to be?
It's not my decision. My orders are to assist you any way I can in carrying out your wishes, but I have to be certain what those wishes are before I can go any further.
Expect you think we're crazy for going on with this.
No. You're not crazy.
Well, sometimes I think we're crazy. But then, I remember some of the letters he had written. But I don't think that anymore. Or, you know, most of them was just Dwight being funny. You know how it is. He didn't want us to worry. He was like that. He was always protecting other people. That last letter, Major, that last one, well, I think maybe you ought to read it.
Steal away, steal away to Jesus. Steal away home. Ain't got long to stay here. My Lord, He calls me by the thunder, the trumpet sounds within my soul. Ain't God long to stay here?
Evening, Douglas.
What do you want, Major?
Talk?
You already talked.
I'd like to talk some more.
Well, I don't want to talk to you, so unless I'm under orders.
Have a draft, please. I hear you're a pretty good soldier, Douglas.
Don't want to hear it, Major. I'm not staying in. 2 more months, I'm out.
Your record indicates.
Just did what I had to do, Major. So don't give me that you brave, you courageous, you America's finest, because I don't go for slogans no more. My time is short, so's my attitude. Getting out.
I'm just trying to get a guy buried, Douglas.
So, really?
Why are you sticking with them?
We always hung together. We're a good unit. Over there, we kept each other alive. You know?
God, Douglas, I would have thought that you, of all men in the unit, how would you feel if somebody told you where you could or couldn't bury your mother, say, or your father? Talk to me, Douglas.
Why? You haven't heard anything I've said.
Was Lieutenant Johnson shot in the front or in the back?
Remember Crazy Mulrooney and his motto? Few things matter.
And nothing matters very much. Yeah, right. Well, unfortunately, Sarge, both these things do matter very much. To a lot of people, me included. You know how it is in the service. You get used to moving around, learning a lot of new names, having a few beers, and then shipping out. But there are certain faces that you don't forget. Dwight Johnson seems to be like that for me. I can't figure out why. I never even met the man.
You know, maybe he's the guy on the other end of your saw.
Now, what does that mean?
When I was a logger, I had this idea that the best guy to have on the other end of the crosscut was your opposite, like a mirror reverse. So when he pulled, you pushed, and vice versa.
So you think we're like opposites?
Well, you said he liked to take chances, and he didn't try to please everybody all the time. You've been a good soldier, Ken, a brave one. But you're still trying to paddle the boat and not make waves.
Major Laird? Oh, Colonel Holmby. This is Sergeant Major retired Bill Davis, my old squad leader. Bill, this is Colonel Holmby.
Colonel?
Nice to meet you, Sergeant Major. Major Laird, how is your special assignment progressing?
It's coming along, sir.
Good. General Hauer has called me about it a couple of times. We can't keep him waiting.
No, sir, I understand.
Enjoy your dinner.
Thank you, sir.
Sir.
Look, why do you keep coming
I'll
around
keep coming
my
around
face?
till
I
I
don't
get
want to
some
talk to
answers
you.
from you.
Leave me alone. You're driving me crazy.
Look, this is not going to go away, and neither am I. Look, Douglas, I'm sorry about what I said at the club last night. That was way out of line, but something is going on. And if we keep covering it up, sealing it over, it's going to rot and rot and rot until it explodes. Now, you tell me something.
I owe you nothing. All right? I went over there, I did my part, but let me tell you what it was like for a brother. I was giving blood to a white guy who had been hit real bad. I mean, I was pumping my own blood into this guy, and when he got enough to come to, he sees he's getting blood from me, and he starts yelling for the medic to stop the transfusion, even when the medic tells him he's gonna die unless he takes my blood. This ridge-running redneck had to think about it before he shut up, so Lieutenant Johnson ain't alone in it.
I would think that that would make you want to help him even more.
That's because you think I'm still a part of this army. I'm not. I'm just biding time.
Look, what has that got to do with helping Dwight Johnson go what's right?
The one thing I learned is that the name of the game is survival. Staying alive any way you can. It's a full-time job, you dig? Now, I'm sorry Lieutenant Johnson's dead. I'm sorry a lot of guys are dead. I'm sorry I wake up at night sweating when it's cold out. I'm sorry I'm talking to you.
Douglas, I know that something is going on.
You weren't there. You weren't in that hole. You didn't feel the rock. Oh, man, when Johnson and Byer got hit, you weren't there.
Byer? Who's Byer? There's no mention in this whole place of anybody named Byer?
Well, it's like I told you, Major. They were pulling them units out pretty fast. In fact, I doubt if we'll ever get all the historical records back. Now, if this fellow was in that unit, one of three possibilities. He's wearing civvies, he's wearing bandages, or he's wearing dirt. Now, if you want, I can find a way of tracing him.
You know, I want. Specialist Byer. I'm Major Laird. How's it going?
How does it look?
Looks rough.
What you want?
I've been assigned Survivor's Assistance Officer.
I ain't dead yet.
Survivor Assistance Officer for the family of Lieutenant Dwight Johnson.
Go away.
Why?
There ain't nothing can happen to me as bad as what's already happened, so there ain't nothing you can threaten me with.
What
Don't
makes
make
you
any
think
damn
anybody's here to
difference.
threaten you with anything?
Get him away from me!
No, you're not being threatened with anything.
Is that clear? Clear? Is anything real clear to you, Major?
Less and less every day. Where's your home, Byer?
Right here, sir.
I mean, where are you from?
Arkansas.
Maybe you're not so surprised at all the problems they've been having in Rockville.
What problems?
You don't know? You're not on the grapevine, too?
I ain't on anybody's grapevine. I don't talk to anybody.
The Johnson family can't get Dwight buried. The town cemetery is all white.
They found him? They found his body?
Took him a while.
Oh.
What's the matter?
Where did they find him?
Just downriver from where you and he were hit. Are you okay?
Where is he now?
He's in his family's church about an hour from here.
He's floating. He's floating like I last saw him. I can't deal with this. I don't want to hear any more about this. Just go away and leave me alone, will you, please? I can't take this anymore.
Calm down. Just listen to me for a minute. It's okay. Bayer, I know what you went through. I was there. There's some part of Nam that we'll never put behind us. But at least for us, the fighting is over. We came home. Lieutenant Johnson came home dead. He's still fighting. Now, I'm trying to help him. You help me.
Huh?
I escorted the body of a Vietnam hero back to his family. And those people can't even bury their only son. When I started all this, it was just a coffin. But I go into his home. I find out this was an amazing man. Dwight Johnson did more in 24 years than most of us will do in 50. And the men who served under him, who put him up for a medal, for his sake, they don't want to help him. They're too scared, and I don't know why. Look at me. You tell me what happened over there. What happened? Until I know it, Dwight Johnson is not going to rest. And I'm not going to rest until I find it.
Found him?
Found what?
It was all my fault.
What are you talking about?
Everything. The airstrike.
Liar. Liar, tell me everything from the beginning.
No, I can't.
The whole thing, you can't.
I can't.
Yes, you can.
No, I can't.
Why not? Why not?
I can't fix it. I can't change what happened.
Look at you. You're holding on to something. Let go of it.
No,
Tell me! I'm sorry. Sorry, I didn't mean to yell at you, but please, help me. Help me pull something good out of all this.
Man, you don't know what you're asking me to do.
No, I don't. No, I don't. But whatever it is, Bayer, this is the time to do it.
Gentlemen.
Sir.
Specialist Bayer refused to talk to me alone. What he has to say, he wanted to say in front of all of you.
The Major told me the story you've been telling about how Lieutenant Johnson died. I come to tell the truth.
Oh, I ain't gonna listen to it.
You don't know what I'm gonna say.
And you're part of this.
Major,
That's enough, soldier. Sit down! All right, Specialist. Take it from the beginning.
Well, you see, Major, About 10 days before Lieutenant Johnson got killed, we were sent out on a long-range reconnaissance patrol north of Shulai. And man, that's all we did. We were humping those boonies looking for Charlie, like clay pigeons out looking for a ski shooter. So we get to this top of the mountain, top of the hill there, and we look down to the valley. And there were VC moving supplies through.
Tell him about the lieutenant's great idea, Buyer.
So the lieutenant says he's gonna call in an airstrike. He checks out his map, hands me some coordinates, and tells me to call in the biggest strike we can get.
And we got it, didn't we?
Major, it hit nowhere near the VC. It landed smack dab on top of us.
Was anybody hit?
Yeah, Wilson. Never knew what hit him. The boy went home in medium-sized chunks.
I wonder what they told his parents.
The lieutenant felt real bad.
Was there racial tension all along? Porter?
Things were getting better. We had a good unit.
We were. The only good thing I was ever a part of. Well, Wilson was our first casualty. We were feeling real lucky up until then.
Lieutenant Johnson was real sharp about most things. It wasn't like him to make that kind of mistake.
Yeah, but he kind of lost it after that.
He didn't lose it. He did not lose it! You could see it was tearing him up inside. But it was too late. I should have told him. I tried. I just couldn't.
What? What are you telling us, Spire?
The lieutenant didn't make a mistake. When I called in the airstrike, I changed the coordinates.
You did what?
I thought they were wrong. I thought he was going to get us all killed.
Douglas, get up. Change the coordinates.
Now, let me get this straight. Didn't the lieutenant check with you afterwards?
Yeah, but I lied again. I told him those were the numbers he gave me.
Why? Why did you do it? Why did you change the numbers?
He figured a black man couldn't plot coordinates.
Is that true? So, Buyer was responsible for an airstrike hitting the unit. Lieutenant Johnson thought it was his fault. And all of you thought so, too. All right, now. Let's get down to it. What happened when all broke loose? Erskine.
Well, it was pretty much like what we told you. Except we left part of it out.
What part?
Well, Lieutenant Johnson thought that he knew where the fire was coming from. He grabs his grenade launcher and he shouts, "Let's take it." And then he jumps up.
What happened then?
Buyer was the only man who followed him. He and the lieutenant were cut down right away. Before he died, the lieutenant aimed the launcher at the spot he thought the mortar was and fired.
Did he hit it?
So he did save your lives. Why didn't you follow him?
I don't know, sir.
Oliver, what about you?
Why didn't you follow him?
When the lieutenant made that mistake, well, after we thought he did, we started to doubt.
To doubt his leadership. Would you have had the same doubts if your officer had been white? Douglas, what about you?
I didn't follow him that day because of the way he was acting. I didn't know if he was the man he was before.
How long did you hesitate? Was it like 1 second or 15?
I don't think anyone knows, sir. Like when you're in a car wreck, you hear the brakes squeal for what seems like forever, and you find out it was only half a second. It just happened before we could think about it.
But if you didn't get together to plan all this, why did you get together to cover it up?
He saved our lives. I thought it was wrong for us not to give him the medal.
Oliver was the one that was against it. He said that if we put him up for a medal, we might have to explain why we weren't with him when he died.
Gentlemen, I want to read you something. This is the last letter that Dwight Johnson ever wrote. I think he must have written it sometime during that last week.
Dear Mom and Dad, only got a minute, so I better write while I can. Things are not good right now. We had our first casualty last week, and it shook up the whole unit, including me. Making decisions that risk death for other people is a terrible burden. I care about all these men. Their lives are in my hands, and my hands are not supposed to shake. They believed in their country so much that they have offered themselves up to die here. My job is to keep that from happening, and it's so hard. Sometimes I feel so confused. Not a moment goes by that I don't ask myself, am I doing this right? But don't worry about me. I'll get through this. I miss you and love you. Your son, Dwight.
We're here for the funeral of Lieutenant Johnson.
You, can't come in here for that.
Mr. Oster, we still own that plot. Now, you can't just take our property.
We'll buy it back from you.
It's not for sale.
This cemetery is now the private property of the Greykirk Corporation. We have a racial covenant, and you can't bury that boy in here.
These are his buddies. He saved our lives. And we're a good unit, mister. And when we make up our minds to do something, nobody can stop us. Am I right, Sergeant Douglas?
You're right, Buyer.
Step aside, Mr. Oster. It's over. Gentlemen?
Forward! March!
Well, it looks like Rockville was ready for this after all.
It looks like it.
Out of this world the soul of our deceased brother. We therefore commit his body to the ground, earth to earth, ashes to ashes, dust to dust, looking for the general resurrection in the last day, and life in the world to come.
February 23rd, 1972. We buried Lieutenant Johnson today, finally. But his spirit feels very much alive here. In this town, in his men, in me. I came here as one kind of person. I'm leaving as another. Together with his family and his men, I think we made a difference. I know that Dwight Johnson did.